Hello, boys and girls. Greg from the Scary Spirits podcast here to make you another cocktail. This week's featured cocktail is the Absolut Fear Cocktail. But please remember, I am not a bartender. I just play one on the internet. Alright, so we're going to start with our highball glass. To that, we're going to add Absolut Raspberri Vodka. 1 1/2 ounces. One and a half ounces. Next, recipe calls for 8 to 10 ounces of SoBe No Fear energy drink. I could not find an energy drink, or I could not find that energy drink. So it does say substitute any energy drink. So I have a Monster. And we're going to top off with our energy drink. No sleep tonight. And there you have it, boys and girls. Absolut No Fear cocktail. It's good. Yeah. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. See ya.
It's an age-old question. Perhaps you've pondered it yourself. Does size really matter? Well, in this week's episode of the Scary Spirits podcast, The Pit and the Pendulum, we find out that apparently it does. At least when it comes to Elizabethan rough collars. The size of the collar represented wealth, prestige, and social status. So, of course, the bigger the better. And not just for the gentlemen, but for the ladies also. So let's be clear here, so everyone now knows. If you've got a chance to choose, go big or go home. Cheers!
Welcome to the Scary Spirits podcast. Please be advised that the presenters may use adult language and/or discuss adult situations. This podcast is not intended for younger listeners or those that may be easily offended. So, if you're ready, let's go.
Hi, I'm Greg,
Hey, I'm Karen.
and welcome to the Scary Spirits podcast, the podcast that combines the two very different yet highly compatible worlds of scary films and alcoholic spirits.
What could possibly go wrong?
Indeed. How are you, Karen?
Well, not as good as you, apparently. Listen to that. Not sure it's as good as the breathy one, but it was full of pep.
It might be this energy drink, Karen.
Maybe it is. I'm doing great. How are you, Greg?
I'm okay.
Feeling a little buzz, are you?
Yeah, maybe a little. Karen, I have a few things to cover before we get started.
Uh-oh.
A few corrections.
Damn it. What did I do?
It's all me, as usual.
What's the Taylor
Karen.
Swift?
Karen,
No,
I
it's
have
a
no
me.
idea.
It's a meme now. It's me. I'm the problem. It's me. That's what.
Okay.
It's pop culture, Greg. Come on.
So in the New Year's Evil episode,
Ooh, going back.
a couple weeks, we were talking about going from time zone to time zone and, killing, a girl at midnight. And I said something about, well, if you started in Cincinnati, you could go to Indianapolis. Well, that's not quite right, Karen, because Cincinnati and Indianapolis are in the same time zone. So that's my bad.
Okay.
And also, we talked about haiku, remember? The haiku poem.
Oh, yeah, because she wrote haikus.
Because
Yes.
Sally started writing haikus.
Yes.
And you mentioned your son wrote one about Cheetos.
Yes.
And
I
I
was
said,
I
it
was
ain't
so
easy
proud.
being cheesy. That's 5 words. That could be the last line. Well, no, that's not how a haiku works, apparently, Karen. It's not
No,
5 words, it's syllables. It's based on
Yes.
syllables. Well,
Yeah.
you didn't point that out at the time, Karen. Were you drunk?
Well, possibly, or maybe I was just trying to make you look good, Greg.
Oh, you didn't want to call me out like that.
Yeah.
Throw me under the bus, as usual.
Again.
Well, then I guess I should thank you for your restraint.
That was a proud moment when he wrote the haiku about Cheetos. Not as proud, though, when he was in nursery school, I guess you'd call it. I don't know.
It was a proud moment for him or a proud moment for you?
For
Karen?
me,
Oh,
when all the kids when they were graduating, preschool, that's what you call it. Sorry, I'm already high on energy drink. Preschool, and all the kids had to say what they wanted to be when they grew up. And, we're at Stanford. So little girl stands up. She's going to be a neurosurgeon. Next little kid gets up. He's going to be, I don't even know, a lawyer or something. My kid stands up. You know what he wants to be?
Punk rocker.
The guy who drives the luggage cart at the airport. That's my baby.
That's probably a good paying union job, Karen.
Well, it did get the best reaction from the crowd.
It'd be fun too. You know what I mean?
That's what he thought.
Yeah, those things look like they'd be fun to drive. It's like a golf cart on steroids, right?
But a train.
Yeah.
Too, right? So we had recently traveled, obviously, and he was looking out the window and saw it. I mean, we had never talked about what he wanted to be when he grew up because he was in preschool. So he just pulled that right out of his head.
You didn't have his future planned for him by then, Karen?
I still don't.
Good.
And it's getting close. So,
Good.
He needs to get on that.
He can plan his own future.
If he's going to drive that luggage cart, he better get his application in. And apparently Southwest needs him.
I used to know a guy that worked at CVG, Karen. Just saying.
Did you? You know a guy?
I used to.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll let him know.
All right.
Anyway, sorry.
Enough foolishness.
Enough proud parent moments. Moving on.
Yes. Karen, I believe this was your film. Was it not?
It absolutely was.
Okay. And what film have you chosen for us this week?
I chose the 1961, The Pit and the Pendulum.
Did you?
I did. Didn't I?
Well, my first question is, what is the title of this film?
Isn't it The Pit and the Pendulum?
Well, when I watched the movie and the title screen came on, it said Pit and the Pendulum.
Oh.
And on Amazon Prime, I looked back and then I was looking at the title and it said Pit and the Pendulum.
Okay.
But then I look at all the movie posters and they all say the, as they say in Columbus, Karen, the Pit and the Pendulum. And when I look it up on like Wikipedia and IMDb, it says The Pit and the Pendulum. So I'm not sure what the actual title of this film is.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, that's a conundrum, isn't it? We're already in controversy and we haven't even started yet.
I know. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I just know what I see. You haven't answered what the title of this film is, Karen.
I don't know. I'm agreeing with you that it's a controversy.
Okay.
A conundrum. Well, let's go with the movie poster because but then the credits showed
title
something
screen
different.
Says Pit and the Pendulum. It might be because like the movie posters all say Edgar Allen Poe's The Pit and the Pendulum, which is the title of his story, I assume. Right?
Yes.
Okay. So let's go with that. The Pit and the Pendulum.
Even though it has nothing really to do with his story.
What do you mean? Well, I don't know that. So
they're very different.
Well, I don't know that. I'm going to need you to educate me on that, I guess. Because I don't know the story.
Well, I haven't read it, but
I do recognize lots of Poe themes, but I guess we'll get to it. All right. Now that we've solved that conundrum, Karen.
We didn't solve anything and we lost our listener. So we're talking to no one now, but it's okay.
Is there a reason why you chose this film, Karen?
There is. I actually linked it to something.
We'll go
as
on.
you like to do. This week is Edgar Allan Poe's birthday.
It is. You're right, Karen.
Thank goodness, because that's why I picked the movie.
Edgar Allan Poe's birthday is January 19th. And if you're listening to this, the day it goes live, it is January 18th. So be sure to wish a happy birthday to Edgar Allan Poe. Any idea how old he would have been, Karen?
122.
Edgar Allan Poe would have been 214 years old.
I was only 100 years
Tomorrow.
off.
So happy birthday, Edgar. Sorry you did not have success in your life.
He was from Baltimore, or spent time there, I know. And there was a museum there, but it wasn't in the best part of town, and they would bus tourists into it. There was always a story in the paper how crooks would come on the bus and rob everybody on the bus. So I never saw the museum when I was there.
Apparently there are several.
Yeah, I heard there are.
Anywhere where he lived, they've converted into museums for the most part. Okay. Do we have a cocktail, Karen, for this episode?
We do.
Oh, go on.
It's called the Absolut Fear Cocktail.
Absolute Fear. And how would we make this concoction?
It's a mixed drink recipe from Cocktail Builder. You're going to add 1.5 ounces of Absolut Raspberri Vodka to 8 to 10 ounces of SoBe No Fear energy drink, or any energy drink, which I used Red Bull because I couldn't find the SoBe No Fear energy drink.
Yes, and I'm drinking Monster, Karen.
I'm thinking now that I'm looking at it, I probably should have went to a gas station to find it. I went to a grocery store up
So
here.
did I.
So I'm thinking that's where they have the SoBe No Fear. Anyway, you put the raspberry Absolut vodka into a highball glass and fill the rest of the glass with the energy drink. Did you add ice? I did.
I did, Karen.
Yeah. So easy peasy.
Yep, 2 ingredients.
Absolute fear.
Should we give our listener time to make their own?
Absolutely. See what I did there?
I do, Karen. You're wicked clever.
I am.
All right, hold on. And we're back.
Yes, we are.
All right, Karen, might you have a brief synopsis?
I do.
Go on, tell me a story.
Elizabeth Barnard Medina has died in the prime of life, and her brother Francis wants to know why. Elizabeth's husband, Nicholas, and her doctor offer differing explanations, but when Francis learns that Nicholas's mother may have been buried alive, he begins to wonder if his sister met the same fate. And when he comes to believe that Elizabeth's spirit wanders about Nicholas's castle, Francis investigates and is stunned by what he finds.
Not really accurate.
No, I didn't know his name was Francis.
Oh, I did.
Through the whole movie, I call him the brother.
I did.
Does he introduce himself and I missed it?
No, Karen, when I watch these films, typically the first thing I do is on one side of a notebook, I write the major characters' names so I can call them by name.
Oh, well, you'll have
So
to remind me.
We'll get to it, but my first note here is Francis in a carriage.
Well, there you go. Because I say a man in a carriage.
I assumed he was Francis. I didn't know. Have you ever seen this film before, Karen?
I have not.
I have not either. And not even bits and pieces, I don't think.
No. Usually I've seen something, but nothing from this.
Yeah, me either.
Did you watch it on Amazon?
I did.
I did too.
Should we get into it?
Let's go.
All right. Hitting the Pendulum from 1961. As I said, the first line I have is Francis in a carriage.
Well, what I saw before even that, it was rated 18 plus.
Was it?
Which I thought was very strange because there's no drinking, swearing, or smoking in it.
Or boobs, Karen. No boobs.
Even, yeah. There's nothing except a torture chamber. So I thought that was interesting to start off.
Yeah, I didn't see that. And Francis is in the carriage and they're driving to a castle on a cliff.
Next to the ocean.
Yes, and driver refuses to take him all the way there, so he gives him his bag and kicks him out, which is a popular trope I'm learning, Karen.
It is. Thinking, if the driver kicks you out and isn't going to take you to the castle, don't go to the castle. But this guy has to, for family reasons. There's a reason he's going there.
True.
He needs answers.
And we have credits. Then we have lots of Froggy's Fog as Francis makes his way to the castle and knocks on the door.
With the very large door knocker.
Door opens. I guess it's Maximilian.
It is.
Yeah, opens the door. Francis announces himself as the brother of Elizabeth.
They do try to close the door in his face.
They do, before they know who he is.
Don Medina is not accepting visitors.
And they keep saying that name, and I don't know what the fuck it means.
What's the master of the house? She's Danya and he's Don. So
okay. Whatever. I call them Nicholas and Catherine.
Yes. Oh, the man does say that Mr. Francis Barnard has come from England to see Nicholas. So they do announce him. So I should have paid attention.
Yeah, Catherine comes and lets him in, right? Catherine, the sister of Nicholas, who was the husband of Elizabeth.
Yes, once she knows who he is, she says, let him in.
Well, by all means, let him in. Won't you spend the night? But of course, Francis, first thing he wants to do is visit his sister's grave. Catherine tells him that she is interned below the castle. It is a family tradition, Karen.
Yeah, to bury him in the basement.
Yes. And Catherine takes him there.
Yeah, she says she'll take him there. And I do say it is a lovely castle. It's a nice set. The castle is nice. But she does take him down into the basement, and there are cobwebs everywhere.
We enter a torture chamber, Karen. And there's a loud noise coming from behind a door. And Francis goes to investigate. And just as he reaches the door, the noise stops. And who we learn is Nicholas opens the door and says, "Who the hell are you?"
Yes, and right before that, the sister does tell Francis that his sister has been dead for 3 months. It's been quite a while. But when Vincent Price, who is Nicholas, sticks his head out, the brother, Francis, turns to Catherine and says, "He's resting, huh?" Because he's obviously not. Because that's what she says. You can't see him because he's resting.
Correct.
So she's kind of caught in a little bit of a lie there. But she says she thought he was.
I kind of find it odd that Francis has never met the husband of his sister and vice versa.
Well, maybe back in the day,
I don't know. It's weird.
Well, they're in different countries.
So?
But travel was harder back then.
He traveled. He thought enough to travel after he learned she was dead.
That's true. They didn't invite him, maybe. Maybe they eloped and went to Vegas.
So, of course, Francis asks how Elizabeth died. And I would want to know how my sister died.
Well, first Nicholas says, "Why are you here?" And then he explains, "I want to know what happened to my sister," which is reasonable. Like you said, you would want to know.
Nicholas is very apologetic. He's sorry. I should have filled you in more in my, communication. I guess the letter, the snail mail that I sent you.
He says, "Shock and grief have restrained me from talking about it."
But he tells Nicholas it was an illness. And of course, Francis wants to know, well, was she treated by anyone, a doctor? And
he says an illness of some duration, something to do with her blood.
Dr. Leone treated her, the family doctor, Karen.
A physician of great repute.
So they take Francis to see Elizabeth's crypt, basically, right?
Her plaque on the wall.
Yeah, her plaque on the wall.
And he mentions that this is a family tradition, just like Catherine, his sister, said. So they both say that.
Nicholas asks Francis if he would like to spend the night. And Francis says he will spend the night and many more until he finds out what happened. Damn it.
Yes, he's not
happy.
He's suspicious the whole time.
He is.
He's not getting answers, and he can tell something's going on.
Well, if your sister died and you went to see
Her husband in a
Her
castle.
husband in a castle. And it turned out to be Vincent Price. Wouldn't you be suspicious, Karen?
Absolutely.
So next, Nicholas comes to see Francis in his room, to check, be sure everything's fine or whatever. And there are 2 paintings in Francis's room, Karen. One that looks very much like Vincent Price.
Yes, very much like him. But it's not him.
It's not him. Francis asks, and he says, no, that is my father, Sebastian. And the other painting is his uncle. So Francis wants further details about his sister's death. And Nicholas takes Francis to Elizabeth's room. He kept it exactly the way she left it, Karen.
Yes. Look around the room. It was furnished and arranged with dedicated love. All the furniture was made by master craftsmen.
And he goes on and on and on about Elizabeth. Nicholas does.
Yes.
And finally, at last, he, has a moment where he's beginning to break down and he asks Francis to leave. Please leave me to my grief.
But right before all that happens, he is startled by a maid who's in the room cleaning.
Maria.
And she leaves, which she ends up cleaning that room an awful lot for nobody being in it, but whatever.
Next, we're at dinner, apparently. We're finishing dinner. There's a knock at the door, and Catherine is, oh, who could that be?
We do find out that Francis is from London and Catherine lives in Barcelona. She's only been back for a week. And then there is a visitor. And
Dr. Leone arrives. Am I saying his name right, Karen? I don't know.
I think so. Yeah, Leone. Okay. Dr. Charles Leone.
And it's after dinner, so they all share a drink, an after-dinner drink. And Francis asks the doctor what caused his sister's death.
Immediately. There's very little small talk. I thought the doctor looked like a young Paul Simon. Did you think that?
He's more handsome than Paul Simon.
I thought maybe it was the haircut. I don't know. But Francis is suspicious and he's not getting answers.
Doctor tells him that his sister basically died of fright. Her heart stopped due to a massive shock.
Yes, absolute fear, which explains my drink choice.
Good job, Karen.
Thanks.
Francis demands to see where it happened. They go down to the dungeon to the same door the noise was coming from earlier, I think.
Carrying the ever-present torch.
And they enter the torture chamber.
Okay, did you notice they're all wearing matching outfits? They're all in black and gold.
Well, maybe that was the fashion of the time.
Possibly. And they also have Elizabethan collars.
Yes, they do. I noticed that. Well, the men do, right? And
she sort of does. It's called the Elizabethan ruff, a large, stiff, upright, usually lace collar that, in all honesty, looks uncomfortable and awkward. The Elizabethan collar that dominated fashion during the late 16th and 17th centuries. But it was an indicator of wealth, prestige.
What century, Karen?
16th and 17th centuries.
Okay, that makes sense.
It was an indicator of wealth, prestige, and social status. So they became increasingly large and elaborate as methods to create them advanced. They took hours to make, and they would embroider jewels and precious metals and stones into them. But the whole thing...
They're just like Halloween decorations, Karen, that you unravel or unfold and, you know what I mean? Those crepe paper decorations.
Yes. Yeah. But they ultimately
transitioned black cats and ghosts
to become the ultimate display of excess. So the bigger the collar, the more
like honeycombs
wealth you had.
Okay.
That they look uncomfortable.
Well, I thought Nicholas's was kind of small.
Not to pass judgment, but the size of a man's ruff makes a difference.
Yeah, because I thought he was
in status.
Nicholas was a little smaller than Francis.
Well, that would explain whether they had differing wealth. But they're in Spain, so I'm not sure it's the same, but I think it is. Because Nicholas is from London, so...
So anyway, Nicholas explains that
just a hint, if you're going to wear one of those, get a big one. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Apparently size matters. Is that what you're saying, Karen?
Yes. Apparently it does.
Okay. Nicholas explains that the torture chamber is his father's. Tells Francis that the atmosphere of the castle destroyed his sister. And we have a flashback, Karen.
And we can tell because it's purple.
Nicholas bringing Elizabeth breakfast. We see this, and painting her portrait and having dinner, and her playing the harpsichord, and fa la 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 la. Right?
Well, he does mention that over 1,000 men and women were killed within the walls of the torture chamber. So he's setting the mood there. And then then he goes, and he says that the malignant atmosphere of the castle destroyed her. But Francis says his sister was strong and willful woman, so he doesn't believe it. And then they have the flashback of how happy they were. They dined and enjoyed intimate conversation. And we see Elizabeth in this flashback.
We do.
She has an extremely tiny waist. And they were happy, and then the darkness
She probably had
came.
a corset on, Karen.
But she used to play the harpsichord for him all the time. So you probably know this.
Oh, I know. I know all about the harpsichord, Karen.
That what makes a harpsichord different from a piano? Because they look a little similar.
Well, a piano is actually called a pianoforte, Karen. Its technical name.
Okay.
Which implies that you can play louder and softer. A harpsichord, instead of a piano, which hammers a string, and you can, depending on your touch, it hammers softer or louder.
Mm-hmm.
A harpsichord plucks a string, and there is no way to play dynamics with a harpsichord. It's all one level of volume.
Yes. And for this reason, Greg, the piano falls under the percussion instrument category.
Correct.
While the harpsichord is
a string instrument. Yes.
Yes. Very impressive. There you go.
It's like I was a music major or something.
It is. So fascinating. That retention. Nice. Yes.
I always enjoyed the sound of harpsichord, actually.
Yes, I do too. And she played the harpsichord often, apparently.
Nicholas continues his story and tells Francis about how she suddenly stopped sleeping and eating and would wander the castle at night. She was fascinated by the torture chamber devices, Karen. Nicholas had planned to take her away, but before they could leave, she was found in the Iron Maiden.
Yes, she was. The awful history had obsessed her, and she was tormented by the cursed, haunted fascination. The pain and suffering was luring her to sickness and to death.
And she whispered the name Sebastian before she died, which is Nicholas's father's name.
Yes. So she was in the Iron Maiden. I didn't look that. What's the Iron Maiden?
Some people don't even think it's a real thing, right? But it was basically a sarcophagus with spikes on the inside of it that you would put people in and lock them in, and they would just be punctured by the spikes and stay in there until they died.
Slowly, apparently.
Yes.
But this one didn't look like it had spikes or anything. It just looked like a box.
It had some. I saw them.
Oh, there was a skeleton in it, I think.
Yes, and it was impaled by spikes.
Oh, okay. I missed that part.
In his flashback.
Okay.
Next we cut, I guess, to a scene, and Catherine has gone to see Francis and is telling him that Nicholas is telling him the truth, and
he needs to believe it, but
yeah, please believe
Francis is suspicious. She's saying he's trying to spare you pain. He's a good man, a gentleman. He adored your sister. But Francis says he would like to believe him, but he's finding it difficult.
He seems guilty. He says Nicholas seems guilty.
Yes.
And Catherine kind of explains that away. Well, he is. He feels guilt. He feels like it's his fault.
But she's going to tell him a story.
Yeah, we have another flashback.
And it's purple or blue.
And we see Nicholas as a child sneaking around the torture chamber.
Playing. Which he's not supposed to do. He was forbidden.
His father, Sebastian, enters with their mother and their uncle. Right? So Sebastian's brother and his bride, right?
Yes. Sebastian's brother and Sebastian's wife.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, the way you sounded, it said, and his bride. It sounded like it was his brother's bride, but it's not. It's his own bride. And he's giving them a tour of the torture chamber.
Torture chamber, yes.
Yes. And the father is smiling.
And Sebastian accuses his brother and his wife of having an affair. He kills his brother and tortures his wife, who is Nicholas's mother.
And he keeps screaming, adulterer, adulterer. Catherine begs him to have pity and help him by believing him. And Nicholas says he'll try.
And then we cut to like a montage or something of like we're going around the castle or whatever. But we do see Elizabeth, her tomb, and it says Elizabeth Medina, 1517 to 1546.
Yeah, there's a small like altar and around there and lots of cobwebs again.
So what, 39 years old? She doesn't look that old.
No.
So next we hear harpsichord music, Karen. And as I was watching it, I wasn't sure if everyone was hearing it in the film or just me.
Right. I agree.
I didn't know
You don't know if it's
like the mood,
the soundtrack,
music,
yeah,
or if it's actually being played in a castle by unseen hands or whatever. But apparently everyone hears it.
Yes, because Francis is reading in his room and he walks out and it stops playing and then it starts again.
So Francis, Catherine, and the doctor all come out to investigate.
And the doctor's wondering where Nicholas is.
And then they run into Maria, and she says she heard the playing as well. Then I guess Nicholas comes out and tells them that it was Elizabeth.
Yes.
He did not see her, but he knows her playing.
Apparently earlier, Nicholas says he can't play the harpsichord.
Well, Catherine says no, he can't.
Yeah. We know he's not supposed to be able to know how to do that.
And they find Elizabeth's ring on the keyboard of the harpsichord.
The string instrument. Yes.
And Nicholas faints.
He faints a lot.
He's very delicate.
Yes, he is. But Nicholas is convinced it was Elizabeth.
The doctor puts Nicholas to bed, and then he, Catherine, and Francis go to Francis's room.
Yes, out of earshot of Nicholas. And the doctor has agreed to spend the night at this point.
The doctor tells them that Nicholas believes Elizabeth may have been interred prematurely. But the doctor assures them that she was quite dead when he examined her. He also tells them that Nicholas and Catherine's mother was not tortured to death, but she was buried alive by their father.
And that's all that Nicholas thinks about now. And this is where I started to think the doctor is very calmly telling this story. Like it's not affecting him at all. Which I thought it was kind of suspicious. But
I didn't.
And Francis asks the doctor, "Are you sure she was dead?" And the doctor says yes. And he says, if Elizabeth is walking, it is her spirit, not her living self.
Yeah, doctor thinks that someone else in the castle is trying to drive Nicholas crazy.
Because he says he thought that only he and Nicholas knew what Nicholas's fear was. But apparently someone else knows because they're doing these things to drive him over the edge. Probably a servant, he thinks.
And then right on cue, Maria screams, the servant.
Well, we hear a woman screaming and it's coming from Elizabeth's room.
So
they all run. And Maria's in there. She says she heard her mistress whisper her name. But she's in there cleaning again.
Nicholas arrives and locks the door to Elizabeth's room, saying no one will ever enter again. And we should say that Francis several times has been in there checking the door, the mirror, or the fucking windows and whatever, and everything's locked up tight. Apparently there was only one way in and one way out, right?
That's what they said, yes.
Next we cut to the doctor and Francis trying to solve the mystery at the dinner table.
Francis is getting kind of pissed.
Turned into a detective story, Karen.
Yes, it has. But he's getting pissed. how long are we going to accept these occurrences at face value? And of
Yes.
course, the voice was a whisper, so they couldn't tell if it was male or female.
Just then they hear crashing noises coming from Elizabeth's room. And we should say that Francis and the doctor, they're kind of like button heads a little bit, right?
Well, Francis is pissed. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He doesn't believe anybody. He doesn't feel like anybody's telling the truth because he's getting all different stories of what's going on. But yes, they hear a ruckus is what I wrote.
Yes, a ruckus coming from Elizabeth's room, Karen.
But it's locked, of course.
Right. So Francis gets the key from Nicholas and they enter the room and it is ransacked, I wrote.
It's trashed. Like a rock and roll band's hotel room.
Except the windows are still closed.
It's true.
Because a rock and roll band room, the windows would be open and there'd be like, a TV down below or something, in the swimming pool.
Yeah, but there's no TVs now, so why open the windows?
True.
But the portrait is ripped apart and Nicholas faints again. So they have to take him back to his room.
But Francis looks around in the room and he finds a secret passage.
Yes, he does.
He follows it to Nicholas's room. And Francis confronts Nicholas. It's been you all the time, you bastard.
But Nicholas goes on and on and on about how am I doing this without knowing it? He seems very
genuine.
Yes, he does. Is this possible that I'm doing all these things from guilt and I don't know that I'm doing them?
He begins to doubt his sanity and thinks that he may be doing things without him consciously knowing he's doing them, right?
Yes, he thinks he's doing these things unaware to punish himself.
And the doctor decides to exhume Elizabeth.
Well, he thinks it's most likely Maria, the doctor. But the only way they'll know is to exhume Elizabeth. Yes.
So they go down to the crypt and they begin taking the wall down with their pickaxes, Karen.
Yes, they do. Take turns because it's...
Taking turns, swinging the pickaxe. Because it's couple layers of brick. And Nicholas has a flashback of his mother being bricked in.
Yeah, she's chained to the wall and his father is breaking her in. Pretty brutal, really.
Eventually they get in and we see Elizabeth's sarcophagus right there, basically. Which is kind of boobalicious, Karen.
Is it? I didn't notice. But yes, there's an outline of her on the top.
Yes, there is. They open the sarcophagus and we see Elizabeth and she seems to be frozen in a scream, Karen.
Yeah, it's a little creepy. She does look like she was trying to claw her way out or something.
It's a pretty good corpse.
Yeah. And the doctor just says, I swear to you, I thought she was dead because Nicholas just starts screaming, it's true.
True.
It's true.
True. True. True. Yeah, doctor swears he thought Elizabeth was dead.
So it does look like she was trying to claw out and she is kind of frozen in fear. So
buried alive, basically.
Yeah. Not a good look. Hey, you're already halfway through the podcast. What do you think? If you like what you hear, can you take a minute and follow us on social media? At Scary Spirits Podcast. We're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Thanks so much for listening. Now let's get back to the show.
Nicholas runs to his room and grabs a gun. He's going to blow his head off, apparently, Karen. But Catherine runs in and stops him.
And he drops to his knees again.
Yes. The doctor wants Nicholas to leave with him in the morning, and Nicholas refuses.
This is where the doctor seems unfazed and gives Nicholas some wine and tries to convince him to leave his home. Because they can't help Elizabeth now. I mean, what's done is done.
Next thing I have, Karen, is Francis apologizing to Catherine.
Well, they do say...
he believes their story now.
Nicholas... he has some kind of vivid imagery. He said, they were upstairs mourning her and she was downstairs alive, struggling to be free.
Mm-hmm.
The doctor says she doesn't haunt you. And yeah, we should leave in the morning because, the doctor says I have to leave in the morning because I've been neglecting my other patients.
But right here, don't you at this point think, Karen, damn doctor, it's all your fault?
Well, that's what I'm saying. He's like, oh, well, oops.
Oh, I have to leave.
I have to leave in the morning. I have to leave.
Well, I hope you're treating your other patients better than you treated Elizabeth.
Exactly. I'm thinking that's why everybody's just accepting. He's not perturbed at all that he basically said someone was dead who wasn't dead. So through this whole thing, he's very calmly saying, oh, well, I thought she was dead. And he does plead his case, but still he doesn't seem to get any consequences to this. He just says, doesn't. Got to leave in the morning because I have other patients to bury alive.
So anyway, Francis apologizes to Catherine, and then he goes to apologize to Nicholas, but the doctor stops him. Doesn't want Nicholas bothered or whatever.
Well, he and Catherine do talk a little bit. He says he doesn't blame Vincent. He only feels sympathy for him. And then he says they talk a little bit about Barcelona, and I'm thinking, is there a love connection here?
They're making a love connection right here.
Yeah. The doctor stops Francis from going to apologize to Nicholas and asks if he wants to leave with him in the morning.
Yes, offers his carriage.
Yes. Unless there's a storm outside that's picking up speed.
Next, we see Nicholas snuffing out candles.
Which this was a kind of cool effect, didn't you think? As he would snuff out a candle, the lights would dim.
Well, yeah, as they do.
Well, I just thought it was pretty good. Well, the one candle, when he snuffed it, it got pretty dark. So I just thought it was a neat effect.
And as he's putting the candles out, he hears a voice and the passage door opens.
I think it's calling his name, right?
Yes, it's saying his Nicholas. Nicholas. So he follows the passage down to the dungeon. Next, we cut to Catherine going to check on Nicholas and finds him missing.
Yeah, she doesn't know where he might be, so she knocks on the door of Francis looking for her brother.
She checks with Francis to see if he is with him, and then the doctor as well, right? And
yes.
Knocked on the doctor's door looking for Nicholas.
The doctor says, I'll go check below. You guys check up here.
Yeah, so they all decide to split up, just like Scooby and the gang.
Yep.
And search the castle. And here's where I wrote spider webs.
Yeah, there's a lot of spider webs.
They are, and I think they well, maybe we'll get to it later. But to me, it's obvious that as Nicholas is walking through them, that no one has been through those passages in quite a while, right?
That's what I thought too. Even when Francis was going to Nicholas's room,
yes,
he was encountering a lot of cobwebs, which would seem like no one had walked through.
And there are a lot of cobwebs in the torture chamber, which show the elapse of time when those devices have been used as well.
Yes.
So Nicholas is following the voice calling his name. And here I wrote, he seems to be going nuts. He enters the Elizabeth's crypt, and the coffin opens, or their sarcophagus opens, or whatever you want to call it. And a bloody hand comes out. Nicholas runs away, but Elizabeth follows.
She rises from the grave and follows him. And he gets to a locked door, but he has the key, opens the lock, goes in, closes it behind him. But then, of course, he faints.
Well, he falls down steps, I have.
Because he faints again. And she gets in the doorway. And it's the torture room.
Yeah, they're in the torture room. He falls down the stairs. And I wrote, he and Elizabeth have a laugh.
Nicholas is laughing.
And Elizabeth laughs along with him. Then the doctor enters. He checks on Nicholas. And he says he's gone. But he ain't gone.
Well, we know how he knows this, but he also tells Elizabeth to wait. He said, I told you to wait.
Yes, he does.
And I couldn't wait any longer. And I'm thinking, you couldn't wait any longer. It's been at least 3 months.
3 months.
Your brother's in the castle.
Hiding in a castle somewhere.
I guess. It doesn't seem like she's been torturing him this whole time, because this seems kind of new, right? Since her brother has shown up, these things have been happening. You know, I don't know. It seems like it was a surprise her brother showed up, But she couldn't wait one more freaking day. He's leaving in the morning.
Yeah, so basically, we learned that Elizabeth and the doctor have been having an affair, right? And they're trying to make Nicholas crazy. And
they kiss. Yeah. She ruins everything by just not waiting that 24 hours after the 3 months. I mean, if you have a plan, stick to it.
Yeah, he says, wait one more day. And she says, what about her brother? The doctor says he's leaving in the morning. They just need one more day.
But she's waited too long already. She wants to do it.
And then she begins taunting Nicholas because apparently he's gone, but he ain't gone.
She's waited an eternity for this moment. And she wants to torture him.
Yeah, so he's not dead. He's just out of his mind, gone, right?
Well, I thought he was dead, but he smiles because
as she taunts him, he comes to life, and we see that he's not gone. He's just out of his mind, gone.
He's having a psychotic break, is what he's doing,
which could be dangerous.
It is,
especially for Vincent Price. So basically, Nicholas takes on the persona of his father. I wrote Sebastian.
Yes, and he starts calling her Isabella.
And the doctor, his brother.
Yes, and he says he's going to torture her and make her suffer for her faithlessness. He says, you'll be begging me to kill you. And he kisses her and calls her a harlot. And Elizabeth starts screaming. He's knocked over the doctor.
Oh, I have Elizabeth and the doctor try to escape, but Nicholas grabs them. He tells Elizabeth he's going to torture her until she wishes for death.
Yes.
She screams as he puts her into the Iron Maiden. Then the doctor tries to escape, and the doctor and Nicholas fight in the dungeon.
Yeah, the doctor is leaving her in the Iron Maiden. He just tries to run for it. It's like, well, the plan is busted up. Too bad for you. I'm leaving.
But he opens the wrong door as he's running away, and he falls to his death.
Into the pit, yes.
Yeah. Next, Francis arrives, and Nicholas strikes him and calls him by his brother's name because he's still delusional. And
Bartolome, he keeps calling him. So he doesn't see the doctor fall into the pit.
No, he's still looking for his brother. Francis enters, so he assumes it's his brother.
Yes. So he transfers Bartolome from the doctor to Francis.
Knocks Francis out, I guess, and Francis wakes and finds himself chained underneath a pendulum, Karen, with a big blade.
And he's looking around, and there's creepy paintings all over on the walls. Yes. So this was
figures with red eyes.
All of this was supposed to be set up during the Spanish Inquisition.
Okay.
So the Inquisition was a powerful office set up within the Catholic Church to root out and punish heresy throughout Europe and the Americas.
So it's all about the religion, Karen. It's all about God and Jesus and
Catholicism. Beginning in the 12th century and continuing for hundreds of years, the Inquisition.
Convert or die, Karen. Is that basically what it is? Convert.
Yes. The Inquisition is infamous for the severity of its tortures and its persecution of Jews and Muslims. Its worst manifestation was in Spain, where the Spanish Inquisition was a dominant force for more than 200 years, resulting in some 32,000 executions.
In Spain?
Yeah.
So they're saying the worst of it was in Spain.
Yes.
Even though they wiped out complete civilizations in their quest to spread Catholicism.
That's what it says.
All right.
And the most popular torture, or one of the most popular torture techniques, because I was trying to figure out if they used this pendulum thing, but it wasn't in the top 3.
No, I don't think
but
so.
One of the most popular techniques was called, it was just water torture, which consisted of introducing a cloth into the mouth of the victim and forcing them to ingest water spilled from a jar so that they had the impression of drowning.
Yes.
That's lovely. But that's what this whole torture chamber was set up for.
Yep.
But Nicholas has who he thinks is Bartolome now chained to a table, I guess.
Yes. And
but it's really
surrounding
Francis.
him is a pit.
Yeah, I don't get it. What's the purpose of the pit? I mean, I don't really understand.
Symbolic,
Okay.
I think.
So they just roll you into the pit once you've been
Yeah,
sliced in half.
I guess.
So
I don't
you're in
know.
hell. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's supposed to scare you into converting to Catholicism, I guess. I don't know. But as the pendulum swings back and forth, Catherine arrives outside the door and knocks, and Francis hears her and yells for help.
He does see the pendulum, and he says, with the razor edge of destiny, which I thought was quite fitting.
Of course, Nicholas, ties, a piece of cloth around Francis's mouth so he can't speak anymore.
Yeah, because he called to Catherine.
And Catherine tries to get Nicholas to open the door. He doesn't. The pendulum starts to swing. Catherine runs to get Maximilian to help her break into the torture chamber. The pendulum begins slicing Francis's clothes, Karen.
I said I'd be sucking in my stomach like there was no tomorrow at that point. Because, I mean, it's pretty brutal, really. He's laying on a table, chained to the table. He can't move. The pendulum is whooshing back and forth. He's forced to watch it get closer and closer. And one swipe cuts his shirt first. And then the next slice does get a little blood. So it's like millimeters coming down. It came down pretty quick, but that's a torture method in its own right, Well,
I felt like Nicholas was controlling it, how
he was.
far it went down.
It did seem like he was.
He wanted to do it slowly, Karen.
As it nicked
All right.
he slowed it down. Yeah.
I was thinking, all right, Francis, we're going to kill you now, but we're going to kill you slow.
Yeah.
So Maximilian and Catherine enter the chamber. I guess Max has a key. I don't know. Max and Nicholas fight as Catherine tries to stop the pendulum. In the struggle, Nicholas falls into the pit, Karen, and Catherine and Max, I started calling me Max, stop the pendulum and
just in time
and raise it up. They free Francis and look down into the pit, and we see the bodies of Dr. Leon and Nicholas. As they leave the torture chamber, Catherine says, "No one will ever enter this room again." And then we cut to Elizabeth still alive in the Iron Maiden, her mouth bound.
I thought that was very...
Serves her right, the adulterer.
It did seem... I liked that last shot because I had kind of forgotten she was there. And when they said, "No one will enter this room ever again," but they're just leaving the bodies of...
As you do.
Nicholas, and I guess once they're in the basement, it's a family tradition. Just leave them down there. But yeah, I thought that was a very nice touch at the end to show her eyes really big in the Iron Maiden and know that no one was going to come save her.
Nope. And then we have words to read, Karen.
Well, in their defense, they had no idea she was still alive. They thought she was dead. They wouldn't have any reason to think she was there.
No, they thought she was buried alive and she was long gone. She'd been dead for months.
Exactly. Yes, there are words to read.
The words say, Karen, "The agony of my soul found vent in one loud, long, and final scream of despair." Edgar Allan Poe. Credits. The end. All right, Karen, anything you really enjoyed in this film you've chosen?
Well, I loved the sets. I thought the castle was very well done. Even the basement, little overuse of cobwebs, but overall it was a believable castle and a basement. I did like that about it. I liked the whole story. I really liked the ending for multiple reasons. I liked, that the whole thought of watching the pendulum come down is exceedingly frightening. And then leaving and knowing she was going to be stuck in the Iron Maiden was shocking to me. I think it's one of those movies. I really liked the ending, and the action really picked up at the end. It was pretty long and drawn out before that. Didn't seem to really be going anywhere. And then in the last 20 minutes, all the excitement happened. But it was okay because there was some character development and such during that time. So I really liked this movie.
I did too. But as you said, the sets were really good. It almost looked like a Hammer film.
It did.
Even though it's not, but it's from that same period. I like the cobwebs. I liked how you could tell the passage of time.
Yes.
By the cobwebs, you could tell that, okay, this torture instrument hasn't been used, but when we do the flashback, there are no cobwebs because Sebastian has been using them, right?
Yes. Exactly.
And also as he's walking through the passage, like, well, shit, no one's walked through here in decades because of all the cobwebs, right?
Well, it would have only been
so it couldn't have been him walking through there probably, or anyone else for that matter. Well, I don't know.
It should have only been 3 months because they did inter her in the basement. But
I'd like to know where she was hiding.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I didn't like about the film is the plot hole is where was she the whole time? Like, who's feeding her? Who's taking care of her? The doctor obviously isn't there all the time. Or did she arrive when the doctor arrived? Because that's when all the craziness started, right? Did he come? Has she been with him? But she acted
I think the craziness was going on before the doctor arrived. But maybe he just comes and goes and brings her with her. But if that's the case, then why are they
what's the point?
What's the point? Yeah.
She seemed like she hadn't seen him in a while because they kissy faced when they saw each other.
Yeah, they had a very long.
So I don't know where she was.
Embrace.
Yes. I don't know. Maria helping? No, she seemed frightened.
No, I don't think anyone was helping.
But there had to be, and she looked clean.
She did.
She didn't look like she'd been living in the basement for 3 months.
Nope.
So I don't know where she was. I did really enjoy watching it. This is going to be an unpopular opinion, but I thought Vincent Price was overdoing it a little bit. With all the fainting and I don't know.
Well, at first I wasn't sure if he was overdoing it on purpose.
Maybe that's why it was that way, right?
Because he was guilty and trying to convince everyone he wasn't, right?
I guess.
But as it turns out, he is not. He's completely innocent. But he does kind of get some revenge at the end.
He's innocent in the beginning, yes.
Well, yeah, he is.
After his psychotic
break. He doesn't kill his wife.
No, he didn't. He trusted the doctor. But we don't really get a story as to why she was so unhappy that she wanted to not only have
that's what I was wondering. Oh, in his flashback, everything seems like thing changed, like.
But why did
overnight.
She get so unhappy that she couldn't just leave with the doctor? She had to torture him. She wanted to torture him, she said, when they were down in the torture room. So I don't know what happened there. Was he lying and was miserable to her, or it didn't really make sense?
Don't know
that part of it.
I know.
She could have just run away with the doctor.
She could have.
You would think. I don't know.
Unless she wanted to inherit all of his lands and whatever. But he didn't have a big ruffle, Karen.
So,
He didn't have a big Elizabethan ruff.
I don't know. I don't know what the end game was. I don't understand why she felt the need to torture him. Like I said, when she could have just left. I mean, I realized for women, you couldn't leave as easily back then. You couldn't just walk out, but she had a backup plan. She was with the doctor, but who knows? Maybe the doctor was already married. I don't know. And she wanted the castle.
Well, do you know about?
But she should have just killed him then. All
right,
poisoned him.
What do you know about the Poe story?
It's completely different from what I read. It's about the Spanish Inquisition and a man being tortured to convert.
Okay.
And there is a pendulum, but to escape, it's weird. Like he wanders around the room, and in the middle of the room is a pit, and he loses consciousness, and then he is pinned to the table, and they're feeding him. So he rubs meat on the ropes, and the rats come and chew the ropes, and he escapes. But then he realizes there's a pit, and that the walls start to come in to force him to almost fall in the pit. And right at the end, he's rescued because the Inquisition is stopped or something. So that's not similar at all, except that there's a pit and a pendulum. And
but there is like the whole being interred alive, buried alive and shit. That's a popular Poe theme, right? That's like the telltale heart kind of thing, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Do you know who wrote the screenplay for this film, Karen?
I do not. I saw it was directed by Corman.
Yes. It was written by Richard Matheson. Remember Richard Matheson, Karen?
Obviously, I should. Who is
he
it?
wrote Hell House.
Oh, okay.
Legend of Hell House. That film.
Yeah.
And the book, and the novel, and I Am Legend and whatever. But so I found it interesting, and I meant to look up which one came first, this or Hell House. Because there are similar themes about the house being almost a character, right?
Right. Because they talk a little bit about how the castle has absorbed all of the personality of the torture chamber. Maybe Vincent Price overdid it in the beginning so that when he switched personalities, you could really see a difference, because he kept fainting and being overcome with emotion. So he was a sensitive being, and then he has that psychotic break, and he's just,
the novel Hell House was released 10 years after this film. I feel like he borrowed.
You think? Well, you always
or it's his
borrow.
idea. I mean, it's not. I mean, obviously, you just said it doesn't really have a lot to do with the Poe's Pit and the Pendulum, right? As far as the house being because in this film, the house basically, they want you to believe that it drives Elizabeth to her death, right?
They say that, yes, but it also affects Vincent Price's character because of what he saw in the house,
which has nothing to do with the Poe story.
No, what was the other movie we watched where they said it was an Edgar Allan Poe thing and it wasn't at all?
Witchfinder General.
I mean, they borrow from him. They just throw his name on shit that has nothing to do with what he wrote.
What was the
and he
worm?
Probably and he probably gets, his estate probably gets nothing from it.
No, of course not.
Conqueror Worm,
yeah, which was the name of the Poe story. And apparently this was the first. I read this was the first
time they stole Edgar Allan Poe's.
And they went on to do like 6 more films after this.
Do any of them have anything to do with Poe's stories? Or did they just steal the titles and that was it?
I don't know. Well, actually, the first was The House of Usher, released 1 year before this. And then they both did well. So Corman and the production company or whatever, the distribution company, American International Pictures, decided to continue adapting Poe stories for 6 more films. 5 of them starring Vincent Price.
But I'm just curious to find out if any of them actually follow a Poe story.
Well, what do you think, Karen?
No.
I doubt it as well.
But like I said, I really liked this film.
I did too. One thing I will say, Karen, that we haven't quite touched on is that I think Vincent Price is pretty old to be married to that girl in this film.
Yes, as usual.
Elizabeth looks pretty young. Well, apparently she's 39. I don't think she looks 39.
No, she doesn't. She looks in her mid-20s.
Yeah.
Maybe late 20s. But not 30 yet. But that's so common, we barely even mention it anymore.
Yeah, so Barbara Steele. So she's born in 1937. So in 1961, she was 30 years old. 29, 30, whatever. Right? She's 85 now.
But how old was Vincent Price?
At the time of this film?
Yeah.
He was 50 years old.
But back during that time, that probably wasn't that uncommon.
No.
I mean, we look at
30,
it now and we're like,
50. I mean, My mom and dad were like, years apart. Not 20, but still long enough. But yeah, so that's not crazy.
It's a little weird when looking at it now. 20 years is a pretty big gap, but back then for sure. I think at 30 and 50, it's a big gap. At 50 and 70, it's a pretty big gap. Once you get past 15, it gets a little.
Yeah, probably right.
30 years is a lot. Oh, I guess it's 20 years.
20.
She was 30. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's getting anything over 15. I don't know what people talk about because you don't have the same reference. When you're 22, you're wanting to go to clubs and stuff. When you're 42, you don't want to do that shit. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, when you're 22, you're getting ready to go out at 10 o'clock. When you're 42, you're going to bed.
Yeah, you're getting ready. I mean, I don't know. I guess if you're an older 22 and a younger 42, maybe it could work. I don't want to judge on people's relationships, but I think it would be difficult.
Yeah.
That's a whole generation of music, of style, of foods, of everything.
Yeah. Did we talk about what we're disappointed in?
I would just say, I think we touched on it with just the plot holes a little bit. Like we talked about it. I think what I was disappointed in was where the hell was she for those 3 months and what happened that she really wanted to torture him instead of just leaving. There was a lot of character development the whole time, but nobody mentioned anything.
Couldn't she bang on the Iron Maiden?
I guess not. I don't know. I've never been in one, so I don't know.
I feel bad I don't have an Iron Maiden reference. Whatever.
They don't have a song about an Iron Maiden?
They do.
What's it called?
Iron Maiden.
Well, there you go. There's your Iron Maiden reference. Snuck that baby in there.
It's off their first album, Karen.
Of course it is.
Self-titled album, Iron Maiden from 1980. And they play it every show. Part of the encore every show. All right, so we covered everything we're disappointed in.
Were you disappointed in anything else?
No,
I agree. I think it was very well done. At first, I will say in its
do you think
defense that I was thinking this isn't a horror film. Nothing's happening. Oh, okay, maybe there's a ghost. But as they got later into it, just laying on that table, watching that thing swing, that's a horror movie. Yeah.
Do you think Francis and Catherine went away together at the end, Karen?
Absolutely. I think it's a love story, Greg. In the end, it's all about romance.
Yeah. Francis was a good-looking guy.
Yeah, he looked familiar, but I couldn't place him.
And he had a big Elizabethan ruff.
It's what a girl looks for.
All right, what kind of cocktail rating you want to give this film, Karen?
I'm leaning towards a 2 because I think it's better than some of the ones that we've given 3s to. But it's as good as some we've given 3s to. So if you had any argument and wanted to give it a 3, I'd be fine with that. But I think
I enjoyed it.
I really enjoyed it. I think
it was a twist. I didn't know,
There was a twist when I didn't really know that she was still alive. And then there was a twist again at the end when you saw her in the Iron Maiden. So they kind of got me twice. I knew something was going on with the doctor, but I didn't know what. Like I didn't know if he had buried her alive on purpose for Vince, like I knew something was off there, but I didn't put it together.
Me too.
So
I wasn't sure if he was covering for him or
right.
If he was actually believed she was dead or what, but
so
I had no idea that, he was having an affair with her. That was
right. And I didn't think she was alive. Wandering.
Right.
I thought somebody was definitely doing something, but I didn't think it was her. Yep. I thought it was somebody with the doctor, maybe even the sister. So they got me twice.
No, I never suspected the sister in any of it. Okay. Comments on our cocktail, Karen?
I think it's good.
Mine has evaporated once again.
I didn't drink as much because it's late and I don't want to stay up all night.
Why? Because there's energy drink in it, Karen? Is that why?
Yeah. I see now why people drink vodka and Red Bull, but The raspberry vodka, I did find it. I did use it. It does have a little bit of an aftertaste that I'm not sure if I like or not. I'm going to try it in something else and see, because I think the Red Bull kind of covers it, so I can't really taste it as much. So I'd like to try something else with it.
Anything we learned today?
Well, we learned about big collars,
Elizabethan ruffs.
that size matters.
Yes.
We learned about the Spanish Inquisition a little bit and what their favorite torture method was. We had an Iron Maiden reference.
Yes.
And
How
of course,
House. Talked a little bit about How House.
yes, of course, the difference between a piano and a harpsichord.
Yes, we all know now. Pianoforte.
Sorry.
A harpsichord.
Percussion versus string instrument. All kinds of info this time.
All right, Karen, next film. Is it my choice?
Yeah, what do you got for us?
It's a good question, Karen. What do I have for us? Next week, Karen, we are watching The Comedy of Terrors.
Why did you choose that one?
Karen, that film was released in 1964 on January 22nd. And our next episode will go live on January 25th.
What year is The Comedy of Terrors from?
1964, Karen, like I just said.
Oh, did you say it? Sorry.
I did. So celebrating its, what would that be, Karen? 58 years. Or is it?
Might be 59. Because it's 2023.
It is. Yep. 59 years. 59th anniversary. You haven't seen this before, have you, Karen?
Never even heard of it.
I haven't either. And I think it may not be so much a horror film as it is a comedy, but we'll see. It's got Vincent Price, Peter Lorre, Boris Karloff, all your horror favorites in it. So,
Do you have a drink to go with it?
I do, Karen. The drink I have chosen is called The Undertaker.
Nice.
Would you like to know how to make it?
Of course.
You're going to love this cocktail, Karen. We're going to need vanilla vodka, Kahlua, cream de cacao, and chilled espresso.
Oh. Espresso, like coffee that...
Yes, chilled espresso. You can go to Kroger and get like a bottle of Starbucks chilled espresso.
What do I do with the rest of it?
They'll need 3 ounces of vanilla vodka, 1 ounce Kahlua, 1 ounce cream de cacao, and 1 ounce chilled espresso.
Wow.
A little shaker with ice, shake, strain into a martini glass. There you go.
Okay.
The Undertaker.
Another one that's going to keep you up all night.
Tastes like a chocolate and vanilla espresso. It's sweet and easy to love. And it will keep you awake.
Just like me. Sweet, easy to love, and I'll keep you awake.
Very similar to our drink this week, Karen.
What, that it'll keep you awake?
Yeah, the energy drink. Anyone you need to thank this week, Karen?
Well, of course, I'm going to thank our listener. There's a lot of podcasts out there. Thank you for spending time with us. What about you, Greg? Who do you want to thank?
Well, I want to thank our new YouTube subscriber, Mario. You know who you are. Thank you. And of course, I need to thank the band Verse 13 for providing all the music in the Scary Spirits podcast.
The music does make the podcast better.
Anything else, Karen?
Please drink responsibly.
Yes.
Hey, it's Karen, and I'm here to talk to you about getting social with us. Did you know you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Scary Spirits Podcast? Or check out our website, scaryspirits.com. If you have something to say, email us at info@scaryspirits.com. And as always, thanks so much for listening. Please drink responsibly.